It's the most wonderful time of the year when I get to talk about NWA, because I don't follow Power week to week on this channel, but I do follow the NWA pay-per-views. And I woke up one day and saw, Jesus Christ, we got a new NWA pay-per-view. It's called Enough Said, February 11th, 2023. And I said, you know what? Let's do this. Super Bowl weekend, baby, let's do it. I realize, of course, that Billy Corgan, him and Tony Khan, they're the guys that everyone has always said Vince McMahon was. Everybody always says Vince McMahon is booking this show for one person. How could you look at NWA, and in some cases Dynamite too, and think that the average person will give a rat's ass about anything that they're putting on the screen? How could you do that? How could you do it? I don't know. But let's talk about this real quick, because I think this is very interesting before we really get there. And I say that knowing this is going to contradict what I just said. So there is a wrestling journalist. His name is Livy Margolin. He co-hosts the Business of the Business podcast. And I'm guessing for issues and giggles, he decided to compare the Google Trends of WOW, Women of Wrestling, Game Changer Wrestling, Major League Wrestling, and the National Wrestling Alliance. And what Mr. Margolin found is that the NWA actually trends on Twitter far more often than the other organizations. Now, the most accurate information, of course, is from 2022, because that was, the end of the year. But it was from December 2022. You see that there's a huge spike in mid to late 2022 for the NWA, likely because Tyrus won the world title and pissed the entire world off, including me. I was almost ready to go full riot and set my mattress on fire, but it didn't happen that way. But you actually see the breakdown by states. You see that GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, is actually more popular in some Eastern Coast cities, or states rather, like New Jersey, where they have a home base. I think that's Connecticut, Michigan, which is, they kind of started running shows in Michigan. And on the West Coast, in Oregon and California, Nevada, I think this is Wyoming, Colorado, and I want to say this is Utah? Whatever. But the rest is all given to the NWA. Now, some people are trying to say that this is, the legacy of the NWA. That, Billy Corgan is running a legacy of NWA. So that might be the reason why, the Google Trends are higher for NWA than everything else. But it's shocking to me that NWA is more on the tongues of the average person, and GCW, which seems to get a lot of people's attention, and Major League Wrestling, which, Major League Wrestling, they got a nice little boost near the end of 2023 when it was announced, of course, that they were going to do the Reels TV special, which came and went, and nobody even asked me to talk about it, which is, I was going to see if somebody was going to ask me to talk about it. They didn't, so, like days went by and nobody said anything about it. So that was nice. I guess told me that nobody cares. So let's talk about NWA Enough Said. Now, I have not committed all of the storylines to memory, so that's going to affect my ability to do reviews and to tell the story of each match, etc. But a lot of these matches don't really have that much story anyway, especially since they had a lengthy 1-hour pre-show which featured like 4 or 5 matches. All right. So this was an insanely long show. There was 10 matches on this card. 10. And 4 of those were pre-show matches. It featured a bevy of weird-looking characters, very weird-looking wrestlers, and very awkward situations. And we will be talking about that as we go along. So the first match was Missa Kate versus La Rosa Negra. La Rosa Negra won the match. La Rosa Negra, for those of you who don't know, was the girl who apparently Tully Blanchard's daughter was being racist towards in Japan. So that's kind of her claim to fame, unfortunately. But I think she's actually like a Puerto Rican pro wrestler. And this match wasn't terrible, actually. The second match was Mims and Dak Draper versus Blake Troop and Jax Dane. I don't know who Blake Troop is either. So if you got a big question mark over your head at this point, look up and see if you got a question mark over your head. If you do, then I have one too, because I have no idea who Blake Troop is. Never seen the guy before in my life. Dak Draper is actually entertaining. I remember seeing him from Ring of Honor, in the late stage Ring of Honor during the empty arena days. He's a really tall guy, kind of muscular, well built. Should definitely be doing better than this. Jax Dane, I don't know what happened to this guy. He just fell in the rabbit hole. So Dak Draper and Mims wins. Nobody really cares, really. I promise you. Odinson defeated Joe Alonzo. Odinson is a guy who's just permanently going nowhere. He's always featured, but never going anywhere. And the fourth match on the pre-show was Genocide and Max the Impaler versus Mercurio and Natalia Markova. So they're doing this weird thing where it's two women versus a man and a woman. Now, of course, we're not supposed to say two women because Max the Impaler is, quote, non-binary. So it's supposed to be like it's equal, or that Max the Impaler is beyond gender or whatever, fancy thing that they're coming up with nowadays. Because, everybody's a special little snowflake with their individual fingerprints and everything, right? Mercurio is basically a male model kind of gimmick, so it makes sense that, a bigger, stronger chick would beat him up. But Natalia Markova ends up winning the match anyway. All right, so Natalia Markova and Mercurio ends up beating Genocide and Max the Impaler. Hey, good usage of Max the Impaler. Remember when everybody used to be so mad that Max the Impaler was being ripped off by WWE and everybody claimed to love her so much? Oh, I love Max the Impaler so much. Oh, I love her so much. Here she is on the pre-show of a fucking NWA show. All right. So after the match, some guy named Magic Jake Dumas, who I've only seen like 2 or 3 times, he comes out. He's wearing this really cool jacket that has like the playing cards on it. And he's got Christy James with him. She's going by CJ on this show. She's like his showgirl or whatever, his assistant, because he's a magician. He's apparently a crazy magician. So they get in the ring and they confront Natalia Markova and Mercurio. While Jake back his turn because he's yelling at Natalia about literally nothing, Christy James takes a bump and then points at Mercurio as if he attacked her or pushed her down. So then Jake pulls out a playing card and goes to slash this Mercurio guy with a playing card. Like, he just literally just flies off the handle and becomes like this bloodthirsty beast, and he has to get held back. And I didn't understand any of this. Like, I've seen this guy before. I've seen his act with Christy James before. That's how I know her name. And I still don't get it. The guy literally came out of nowhere. I don't know what this has to do with literally Natalia Markova and Mercurio. I have nothing. I don't know. I wish I could tell you I knew. I don't know. And I don't think anybody knew. I don't think Joe Galli knew. I think he was sitting there like, oh my God, what is going on here? Because I have no idea. All right, let's get into the regular card. The first match was Tom Latimer versus a man named Fodder. Fodder. That was the man's name. His name is Fodder. And I just was like, come on. Why is this on pay-per-view? Why are we doing this? And they were in a Singapore cane match. Now, if you want to know why they were in a Singapore cane match, it's actually a pretty good reason. Angelina Love is the #1 contender for the Women's Championship, and Camille is married to Tom Latimer. So Angelina Love had a man with her that she used to jump Tom Latimer. And this man was Fodder. So as she was feuding with Camille, she just had her boyfriend, plaything, whatever, jump Tom Latimer. And then this match happened. Tom Latimer beats the guy with the crossface cane thing. The same thing that Edge used on the Usos and Roman Reigns, where he put it in his mouth and pulled back. It was the exact same concept. The Junior Heavyweight Championship match was second. Kerry Morton versus Alex Taylor. This wasn't terrible. Alex Taylor was, his team won the championship series or whatever. So he gets a title match of his choosing. He chose the junior heavyweight title and lost. Kerry Morton's kid's not bad. He just looks like he's 17. He looks like he's permanently 17. I don't know about that. Now we get into the realm of the bizarre. Now, this is real bizarre. Thrillbilly Silas, who looks like the most 1983 pro wrestler this side of Trevor Murdock. I'm talking mullet. I'm talking chubby. I'm talking yelling at the microphone. Classic pro wrestling. Just, you would have seen him if you were trading tapes in the early 90s. You would have seen this guy. He's wrestling Kratos, former tag team champion of Aaron Stevens' partner Kratos. Now, the story of this match is that Kratos had speared Pollo Del Mar, who is a drag queen that hangs out with Thrillbilly Silas. Thrillbilly Silas hangs out with a drag queen that they refer to as her. So, and Kratos speared Pollo Del Mar, and this upset Thrillbilly Silas. So in the promo, he starts talking about how Kratos ain't a man and how he won't survive this thrill ride. And I was like, you know what? This is entirely too awkward. This is really weird stuff we're doing here. Despite the fact this Pollo Del Mar, this exotico, was supposedly attacked by Kratos, this person was still in Thrillbilly Silas's corner. And believe it or not, Thrillbilly Silas is not awful. Now, Kratos is awful. But Thrillbilly Silas, despite he looks like a hillbilly who chews tobacco and, hangs out like the Megalomart, he wasn't that bad. I'm going to give him some credit. He wasn't that bad. The big finish, I actually enjoyed the finish. Kratos got his head busted open on the metal turnbuckle. This led to Silas putting him in a triangle choke. And Kratos didn't tap out. He kind of just passed out. He was bleeding and bloody and everything. Then I wanted to set my mattress on fire because Thrillbilly Silas licked Kratos' blood off of his hands. Man, I literally wanted to hurl. I literally wanted to projectile vomit. What is up with these guys doing that? It's gross. It's weird. It makes me itch. I cannot stand it. Why do they do that? It doesn't make you look tough. It makes you look gross. I'm telling you. But then again, he hangs out with a drag queen. So, who knows what kind of weird stuff they into. All right. The fourth match. The NWA Women's Tag Team Championships. The Renegade twins, I think their names are Charlotte and Robin, defeat the Pretty Empowered. Now, I have heard of the Renegade twins. I think I've seen them on AEW Dark. I don't watch Dark, but I've seen clips of them from Dark. This match was actually a surprise. The Renegade twins actually showed some emotion when they won. Like, they actually cared about this. Like, somebody cares about these titles at least. The Pretty Empowered have been champions for quite a while. I don't think I've ever seen the Renegade twins on an episode of Power, unless I missed one or two of them and didn't see them on there. But they're the new women's tag team champions, so hooray, boo. I don't know what I was supposed to do, because the last time I saw it, Pretty Empowered were doing a gimmick where one of them was a babyface and the other one was a heel. So I don't know if they were babyfaces or heels. I had no idea. But it wasn't awful. The girls weren't that bad. They weren't that great, but they weren't that bad. All right, a featured contest on this show was EC3 versus Kevin Kiley. Kevin Kiley, otherwise known as Alex Riley from WWE, one of the Miz's former partner, or Miz former buddy, Alex Riley. Now, EC3 cut a promo where he announced that he is now officially signed to the NWA. And he says that NWA is the home that he has chosen to become what he shall become, or some poetic, riddle me this crap that him and Bray Wyatt started doing it around the same time. And he's claiming that CYN is coming with him. And that it is ironic that they're in Florida, where he says that Kevin Kiley, I'm sorry, was a superstar where he trained, because, Kevin Kiley was one of the guys who was in the early days of NXT. So he came from Florida Championship Wrestling. And, of course, EC3 was there too, but, I don't think that was played up at all. In any event, he says that CYN is going to open up its doors for Kevin Kiley, give him an opportunity to ascend and to become more than to redeem himself, I think is the actual words he used. So, Kevin Kiley, or Alex Riley, he comes out wearing an NWA t-shirt, looking like he really about to go to the gym, not have a match, but basically just go sit on a bench and, lift some 15-pound weights a couple of times just to say that he was there, go run on the treadmill a little bit, 5 or 10 minutes, and then, get himself a sports drink, quote unquote, and then go back home. That's what he looked like. He looked like a dad going to the grocery store. And he comes out here to have a wrestling match in which he did very little in the way of offense. But what he did do was try to launch himself over the turnbuckle, a la Montez Ford or any other, 20 to 30-year-old super athlete. And this guy's 41, hasn't wrestled in 6 years, and he decided he was going to do a dive over the turnbuckle, in which case he dove. He at least made it over the turnbuckle, but he tripped himself and landed hard on the solid floor. Just really, really banged him. So he didn't get all of it, as Gorilla Monsoon would say. He didn't get all of that one. It wasn't well thought through. Interesting enough, Mitch Colburn in the Discord was just trying to, and I've seen apparently some people on the internet are trying to talk about the virtues of Alex Riley and how he was such a missed potential and all this kind of stuff. It's like, bro, I know that we like to do that sometimes. We like to look at, what could have been, especially when we go back, you're like, man, it would have been great. But when you talk about somebody like Alex Riley, that's like saying Virgil should have been the world champion because he was so over working with Ted DiBiase. It's like literally he did nothing else. So how could we give him credit for, he literally did nothing else. He worked with The Miz. That was it. How many people have really just gotten over working with The Miz? And then as soon as they get 3 feet away from The Miz, the fan reaction goes through the goddamn floor and nobody cares about them. Clearly it's not them. All right? If you can't maintain that crowd reaction, clearly it ain't you. You're not the one. Anyway, to move on from this very quickly. My interest in Alex Riley is nil, basically, especially after he went all deranged on John Cena and started talking about wrestling unions and all this kind of stuff. I'm just kind of like, yeah, well, you're far away from a union now, brother. You're working in a circus run by Billy Corgan, who literally, writes songs with a guitar on one hand and then books your wrestling show while he's, on Adderall or something like that. So maybe Alex Riley is going to be in CYN. He's going to be a regular player here in NWA. I don't know. Do I care? No. It's just a thing that's happening, I guess. Next, Blunt Force Trauma versus La Rebellion. NWA Tag Team Championship. Blunt Force Trauma is a knockoff of Doom. It is 2 old black men in masks. Yes, sirree. Managed by Aaron Stevens, a.k.a. Damian Sandow. It is 2 black men in masks. One of them is Rodney Mack. I know that for sure. Rodney Mack is 46 or something like that. Probably even older. He's another one of these old dinosaurs who can barely move his legs. This match ended in disqualification as Aaron Stevens punched a member of La Rebellion. I believe it was Bastia 666. He hit him with a loaded glove. So they bothered to have this match on this show just for it to be a disqualification. The things I do. My goodness. All right, the 7th match. Trevor Murdock versus Chris Masters. A match straight out of 2006 WWF Superstars. Oh God. Chris Adonis, that's his name, technically speaking. Trevor Murdock was world champion, 4 months ago or something like that. He still looks like a fry cook at a diner. He looks like a trucker. He's another one of these guys who he works on cars. He never ever hangs out anywhere near a gym. He has all kinds of flannel shirts just in different colors. He has 4 different pair of the same jeans. Probably lives in a trailer. It's just it's disturbing. The scenes that we're put upon when it comes to the NWA. Anyway, Chris Masters wins the match with the Master Lock. So, how's that for a former world champion? Take that, loser. Loser. Go pitch a bale of cotton, Trevor Murdock. You suck. The 8th match on this wretched show. Camille defeats Angelina Love. Angelina Love, her lips literally look inflatable. Somebody just, and, the rest of her face just went along with it. It was a mess, I'm telling you. She says that she's been a champion everywhere she's been, and she's not scared of Camille. That's why she's in this match now. Camille really didn't have anything to say. Camille is finally starting to really take her craft seriously. She's been, we'll talk about it in a moment, but she's starting to do Mexican dates, and she's starting to train with other people now. It's she's starting to, sort of grow a little bit, and I can appreciate that. She's been NWA World Champion for 2 years now, apparently, almost 2 years, and it took a while for her to actually start to branch out and do other things. I know she was on the smaller indie scale, here and there. I think she did some of those really small indies, championship wrestling from such and such, but now she's doing Mexico, and she's getting booked on bigger and bigger shows. So her name is starting to go around a little bit. So that's good. It's good for her. She's not as much of a giraffe as she was before, but she's still girl Sheamus, which means she hits people a little too hard, but ain't nothing wrong with that. So Camille ends up winning the match. It was not an awful brawl. Match with no disqualification. It wasn't an awful brawl. She did a lot of selling, which I was appreciated, especially since he was the bigger, stronger babyface. She did a good job of putting Angelina over as a serious heel. The problem I have is that Camille has been NWA Women's Champion for over 600 days with no end in sight. For starters, there's nobody there for her to lose to. In order for her to lose, she would have to lose to one of these 22-year-old girls that's on the roster that literally, can barely find their boots 20 minutes before the match starts. So this thing is off the rails. Oh, brother, it's not good. You've been champion 600 days because you're the only one in the goddamn company for the most part that has any value. The rest, everybody else is entirely too green or entirely too flighty. They're there for a little bit, but then they're gone. Mickie James is one of them. I think Angelina Love is probably going to be another one. Nobody's willing to sit down and commit to the NWA, so they're not going to take the belt from you. And therefore, you just keep it. It's like the old territories, I don't want the belt. That means I have to lose. So, no, you keep it. I'll just come in here and make some money with you, and then I'll leave. Just like the good old days. All right, match 9. Cyan versus Homicide. This is from the national heavyweight title. Cyan is still doing this gimmick where he's the son of Austin Idol, yet he continues to wear a goddamn superstar mask. Cyan wins the match. Homicide probably deserves better. All right, match 10. Finally, the main event. Tyrus versus Matt Cardona. Tyrus cut a promo earlier where he says that haters build his self-esteem because he's seeing what you cheer, and that millions watch him and love him. That's one of the biggest whoppers in wrestling. There's been some pretty pretty big lies that have been told on wrestling shows. You know, WWE maybe fudged the numbers on their attendance. Triple H accused the man of fucking a corpse. But, you know, there's very few lies that are of the scale of Tyrus believing that millions of people know who he is. Now, I know what he means. He doesn't mean millions of people actually watch NWA Power, because that can't possibly be true. That would be a lie on an astronomical scale. That would be like saying you invented water or something like that. What he means is that people know who he is from watching Fox. You know, people watch him on Fox News or whatever the hell he's on. That's what he means, okay? So that's where he claims to have all of these fans. So he says that if you know anybody who's better than him, then you should support them, and then maybe he'll give them a title shot. Come on, who cares about this guy? This fat doofus. Matt Cardona cut a promo earlier saying that he earned and deserved being the world champion, this being Tyrus. But when he had the world title, it was taken away from him by injury. He never was beaten for the title. And that Tyrus should have handed him the title back the moment he came back, but instead he didn't. And said that Tyrus didn't beat him. And at the end of the night, he's going to be a 2-time world champion. Now, the stipulation for this match is there couldn't be any seconds, no managers, or anybody in either corner. That didn't stop Matt Cardona, of course, because he cheated from the word go, where there was a run-in from Mike Knox. There was also a run-in from some guy named Rolando Freeman, who is literally a human bobblehead doll. I mean, he's shaped like Gumby. His arms and legs are like super skinny. He got a giant goddamn head. This is a guy Matt Cardona has decided he was going to play with in the NWA for the entire length of his stay there. So essentially they booked Tyrus, even though earlier he was calling people haters and saying basically, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. I'm the champ. They decided to book him in this match as the underdog babyface. You know, the guy who was sticking to his guns, while Cardona, even though the rules said no seconds, Cardona had tons of run-ins and people trying to help him. It was awful. This match had 2 ref bumps. It didn't matter. Matt Cardona tried to have a match around Brodus Tyrus. It didn't work. This guy sucks. He moves like he's wearing 50 pounds boots on both legs, and he's got the Great Khali on his back. I mean, this guy is so damn slow. He is so slow. He does more than lumber. He teeters on every other step like he's just going to tip over. My God. He's a triceratops. Why? Look, like I said, Billy Corgan is a guy with a lot of money and too much time. As somebody who has reached, you know, a tax bracket where I don't get refunds anymore, I can understand why, you know, Billy Corgan would do this. He needs the expenses. He's looking at this. He's probably got tons of money, and Uncle Sam, oh, they hate that you have too much money. They're like, you got to spend some of this or we're going to take more of it. So he's like, oh, shit. What if I just run a wrestling company? And I can run it into the ground. It doesn't mean anything. It's not my primary source of income. So I can do something absolutely brain dead, like put the title on Tyrus. Piss off the entire wrestling world, whether you're woke or not. There's even people who are not woke who are looking at this thing like, okay, we understand you want to piss people off. You want to piss people off, at least let it be somebody with some talent, somebody with some skill, somebody, you know, Tessa Blanchard or, you know, somebody like that. You want to piss people off? Okay, that might be the way you might want to go with it. But Tyrus? You want to turn your entire company into a goddamn funeral over Tyrus? No. No. We was just talking about this, where was this, in a live stream, I guess, about Conan bringing in Marty Scurll and Alberto Del Rio. And, you know, people were like, hey, what about, you know, Conan doing this? And I was like, well, Mexico is different. They don't care about the stuff that you care about. You know, and I support that Billy Corgan doesn't care about the kinds of things that the woke mob doesn't care about. But my thing is, why doesn't he care about entertainment? Who is watching Tyrus saying that guy should be world champion? That that doesn't make any sense. And if Billy Corgan's going to be like, oh, this is the kind of wrestling I grew up watching, who was that guy? You know, this must have been Andre in '89 or something like that you must have grown up watching. Because they never would have put a world title on some goof like Tyrus back in the day. They wouldn't have done that. Nobody would have. He would have had to own the territory in order for that sort of thing to happen. You know, this guy is 100% clown. This is not good. And then they had Bully Ray come out and put him over, talking about when he was dancing and everything and how that was stupid and yada yada. Like, no. Maybe it was stupid for him to dance. Maybe I was dumb. Maybe Brodus Clay was a dumb gimmick. Yeah, sure. It was dumb. But what is he doing now? You know, this is offensive to wrestling fans of all shapes, sizes, and ages. You don't have to be a fan of Kenny Omega to find this sort of thing to be offensive. You can be a fan of, you have to be like a fan of the Great Khalid in order to think this is okay. This is unacceptable. The Tyrus is an unacceptable world champion, an unacceptable face of your promotion, and it's absolute. It's got to be a money laundering campaign. That's the only thing that can make sense. For you to lose or throw away or burn money the way that Billy Corgan is doing so on the NWA, it's got to be money laundering. Either you're trying to beat some tax, it's a tax gimmick, where you're trying to say, oh, I spend all this on business so you can keep more money, or this is money laundering. Somebody is selling coke somewhere, pounds and pounds of coke, and you're funneling it through the NWA. That would be the only way this would make sense for you to put on a show that features somebody spraying silver stuff into their own mouth, drag queens, hillbillies, two different kinds of hillbillies, by the way, Kentucky hillbillies and Ohio hillbillies, two different versions of living dinosaurs, a rhinoceros and Kratos, and a triceratops and Tyrus. And if you want to count Jax Dane, who is also another lumbering idiot, he's a brontosaurus, even though probably Tyrus is probably more brontosaurus than the rest of them. None of the featured guys who are, young and, Kerry Morton's the only one. Jordan Clearwater didn't make the show in no capacity. The guy's a television champion. He's actually one of the better guys that they have. He's not on the show at all. I get it. He's a TV champion. Why do you want to have the TV title defended on pay-per-view, defended it on TV? Yeah, I get it. He should be featured on this show. NWA becoming sort of the graveyard for FCW washouts like Tyrus and Alex Riley and EC3 is an absolute joke. I saw a Fightful account tweet about all the young talent they used to have in the NWA, like Ricky Starks and Zicky Dice, who sucks, by the way, and Nick Aldis and all those guys. Completely ignoring that the fact that guys like that aren't there anymore is because of 2020, when, the shutdowns occurred and there was only two wrestling companies still promoting, and that was WWE and AEW. And AEW, who was quote unquote working with NWA at the time, ended up snatching Eddie Kingston and Ricky Starks and Thunder Rosa all within the year. So yeah, the shows definitely suffered after the talent was raided. And it kind of happens. So, some guys left. I know Zicky Dice ended up leaving. Nick Aldis has left now. But the people they've chosen to replace those people with is an absolute shame. Rodney Mack, Trevor Murdock. It's got to be some younger wrestlers out there. I mean, when I look at this, is kind of to dovetail the video completely. The reason I mentioned earlier that, NWA gets more Google Trends than, MLW and GCW is because when you look at it, those are good places with, decent to fair young talent. GCW has a nice little squad there of people who actually, they bring in a lot of talent too from like Mexico and Japan and stuff like that. But, there's a nice little crop of talent there. There's a nice little crop of talent in MLW too, even though, sometimes it kind of goes unmentioned. And and AEW has done a great deal of damage to MLW as well. For starters, they took MJF. Then now they're taking EJ and Duca. Now apparently they're going to take them from MLW too. But it happens. This is the wrestling business. Talent comes and goes. You have to find a better way of recruiting talent, especially younger talent. It seems to me that Billy Corgan is obsessed with like 1980s wrestling, and he hasn't stepped into the modern world. Yes, there was a lot of little things that did damage to the NWA brand. Taking power behind a paywall, getting rid of Jim Cornette. There was a lot of things that did a lot of damage to the brand. But nothing has done more damage than the incessant pushing of fat, out of shape 2007 guys, that were washouts from WWE. It is an absolute embarrassment. And compared to what it could be, it is embarrassing. But you may ask yourself, why do I even bother watching these shows? To be quite honest, I ask myself that question sometimes too. But I know also that I built my channel on following more than just AEW and WWE. That's what I do. Sometimes I'll wade over into GCW. Sometimes I'll wade over into MLW. Sometimes I'll wade over into NWA. But I don't follow all that stuff religiously. So for me, it's a nice little interesting piece of business to be able to go and watch an NWA show, especially if I haven't followed the TV that closely, just to see what's going on there. And now we see what's going on there. You got damn EC3, a WWE developmental washout 2 times over. Tyrus, a WWE developmental washout. Alex Riley, who I guess is the second coming of fucking Hulk Hogan, apparently to some people. He's a washout. All these dudes are in their 40s. Most of them are, except for EC3, is not in shape. And Chris Adonis, he's also a WWE washout, but at least he's in good shape. I wouldn't mind Chris Adonis getting a higher level position in NWA, or being a guy that could be pushed in another company. He's a guy who I feel is underutilized there. I think D'Angelo De Niro, who was the Pope, was a guy who was underutilized there. Aaron Stevens was a guy who was underutilized in NWA. So it's not that NWA didn't have talent. It's that, look at who they decided to put on the show. Like I said, Jordan Clearwater is their television champion. He's actually pretty decent. He wasn't on this show. It's a combination of things. But this whole, we're going to keep digging into the WWE developmental garbage bin. And next thing you know, Bull James is going to be on this roster. And, it's like, come on. Corgan, come on. Stop this. Please stop it. Please. You can do better than this. Your money can definitely be better utilized. Unless this is the kind of wrestling promotion you can only run on a shoestring budget. If that's going to be the case, then get a business partner or something like that. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this to yourself. You don't have to do this to your love of pro wrestling. You don't have to do this. You could definitely do better than this. All right. Talk to you guys later, man. Peace.